Well, William Gheen heads up ALIPAC.us, one of the largest, strongest, no-compromise groups defending our sovereignty. But now, he's had one like 10 years ago. He's been on a couple of years. Everything he's talked about and others have talked about has come true. The UN funding it, world government, trying to collapse our borders. It's just gotten crazy. And he had a big article that went viral at ALIPAC.us and at GheenReport.com. Why I want Ann Coulter to run for president in 2020. So here to break down what's behind this idea is William Gheen. William, good to have you with us.
Hey, Alex, it's great to be back after a long time. And, you know, you've been through a lot since the last time I got to talk to you. I just wanted to thank you real quick for hanging in there and really continue what you're doing. I think you've red pilled more people in the country than anyone else. And they can't take you down. I think they pulled the plug on you simultaneously because they had tried to slow you down, and you always found a way to keep coming back. And I know that the key to that's been the strength of the audience that's listening today. It's your supporters. They keep Alex Jones. They keep pushing you forward. And I hear you calling on them to do that more. And I just wanted to take a moment to appreciate that, because I think how you've been able to stay in the fight and never surrender on these issues is an inspiration to others, or should be an inspiration to others, both that you're doing that and some of the techniques that you've used to be able to do that.
Well, I appreciate you, brother, but we're all in this together, and you know the war they've been waging on anybody that's for the country existing, anybody that believes in sovereignty. They are pushing hard against you, against everybody, because we started to win the last few years. But it appears, and I agree with you, that the swamp is starting to have Trump bog into it, and I think what you've been saying about only really getting on his butt will get him to come out of his malaise. So let's talk about your plan to get Coulter to run.
Well, one of the things I want people to realize, because I know, as you know, that when I get off this show, there'll be a lot of people screaming that I'm fake news, and I'll be told that I'm some type of liberal plant, and I will also be told that I am a never Trumper. For the record, for those not familiar with me, I voted for Trump. I donated to Trump. I volunteered for Trump. I rallied on overpasses for Trump. I attended Trump's inauguration. And when I endorsed Trump, which was the first presidential, ALIPAC, we usually endorse congressional candidates and U.S. Senate candidates that we believe support the existing immigration laws instead of any form of amnesty that would permanently destroy our borders. We never had endorsed in our 15-year history a presidential candidate. And the reason I endorsed Donald Trump was because he took the things that I've been saying and that you've been saying, combined with doing something that had never been possible before, putting the victims of illegal alien criminals on stage with him. I endorsed him. And when I did, I blew apart about, you know, the people that sustain your operation. Well, I lost about a third of my financial backers when I endorsed Trump. And many of them sent me the same messages. They're like, William, we trust you. We believe what you're saying. We just don't trust Trump. We don't think that he is sincere about what he's saying and what he's doing. We understand that what he's saying and doing is what we want to hear, but they just didn't believe it. So I took a big hit to support Donald Trump. Now, since that time, we've had to drop our endorsement of Donald Trump because he did not keep his promise to end DACA Amnesty on day one. We did not abandon him quickly. We spent 7 months calling and begging and writing the White House and everything we could think of to do to ask him to honor his promises. And then we dropped our endorsement. And since that time, we're now tracking at least 10 critical immigration promises that Donald Trump has either unfulfilled or flat out broken, or doing 180 degrees opposite from what we ask him to do. So, as you know, Alex, when you're in a position like me, where you're banned from Fox News and MSNBC and all the others, and we're still on Facebook and Twitter, but we're shadow banned or sandbagged. So when I have something to say without my blue check mark, I'm lucky if a couple hundred people hear it, even though 600,000 people have joined our pages. We have to get a little sensational sometimes. We have to be very entertaining. And one of the entertaining, sensational things I've suggested is that Ann Coulter should consider running against Donald Trump in the 2020 primary, because he is not listening to his base. He is not honoring his campaign promises on immigration. And I think that Ann Coulter, who's as imperfect as any of us. You know, I was not a fan of her support for Mitt Romney at one point, or her closeness with Chris Christie, who are both amnesty-supporting globalists, in my opinion. You know, I think Coulter could shake him up. And, you know, I wouldn't make any money from the ratings, but can you imagine the ratings and the entertainment value on an Ann Coulter-Donald Trump debate? This would be something that... well, it's obviously a great idea, and of course, you're the guy that had it. And I want to be clear.
I was an earlier supporter of Trump, I think, on getting us out of the TPP and just saying that it's good to have a nation existing and good to defend the Second Amendment. And so many things he's done in a lot of areas are really good. And two, a lot better Supreme Court justices than Hillary. But at the same time, when he then lets the FBI run rampant and leaves these Democrats in place and all these other things that are against his own interest, it's good to actually have a shot fired across his bow politically to let him know that his real base is getting very, very unhappy about what's happening. I've talked to big national talk show hosts, multiple ones that are very close friends with Trump. He talks to them almost every day. And, Sean Hannity won't criticize the president. He trusts him, and I get that. And I think Hannity does a great job. Well, some of the others had found that, Trump only listens to them when they criticize him about what he's doing. And so I think, this whole Ann Coulter idea is a good one overall. My issue is, I agree with you that overall he's not done a bunch of stuff he said he'd do on immigration yet that he could have with executive power, like declare an emergency and just do it. That said, though, Coulter criticizes the emergency that I was talking about, but instead says keep the government shut down, which hurts the economy. Why not just bypass Pelosi having power, declare the emergency that's in the Constitution? So I disagree with Coulter on some things as well. So it doesn't mean I really don't want Trump to win re-election, but I think you're saying get Coulter to start talking about running to get Trump back on the straight and narrow.
Well, and even if she needs to run, I don't think that it would be harmful for us to have a healthy GOP primary based on the issues and hold Trump accountable. And there's a wide variation of people who do and do not support what I'm doing right now. Me personally, I will never vote for Donald Trump again. I don't care if he's running against the socialist Oscar Cortez or whatever her name is. I can't vote for him again because I feel very betrayed. So it felt great during the campaign and at the inauguration to hear things that I've been saying for years echoing off the walls of the White House and to have some hope that that was going to take place. At this point in the battle to save this country from amnesty legislation, I mean, most of the country, and maybe a lot of people listening right now, would be shocked to know that there was an amnesty embedded in legislation that failed thanks to the Democrats last week that would have pushed us beyond the point of no return. It would have given amnesty to over 1 million DACA and TPS illegal immigrants. And, everybody said, it was a temporary thing. Listen, folks, there's nothing temporary about temporary protective statuses, okay? I've never seen one canceled in the last 20, 30 years, okay? And what Trump tried to do...
Yeah, but what about the argument he did where he said, okay, on the Second Amendment, have whatever you want. They said ban all guns, blew up in their face. He did this with DACA and stuff a year and a half ago. They said, we want everything, no borders. And I think he does that as a tactic, knowing that they're not going to be reasonable.
Well, a lot of people say that, and a lot of people say that this is all part of Trump's big game plan and things like that. But look, folks, he's the president of the United States, and these are things he's saying directly from the Oval Office. The president of the United States has endorsed and is supporting amnesty bills that would destroy the border forevermore. And thank God, there are enough Americans who have been willing to stand up and push back and fight against those bills to stop them, because many people don't want to believe it or don't.
Sure, I'll say this. I mean, first a full wall, now a smaller wall. The wall is secondary to kicking people out that are here illegally. I've got our guest on with us, and I'm going to continue into the next hour a little bit, in the next segment with your phone calls. William Gheen's here. He's written the article, Why I Want Ann Coulter to Run for President 2020. It's at ALIPAC.us. It's also up on Infowars.com. And hey, I like the idea of getting other people to run the Republican primary. That would certainly make her look more extreme than Trump, and probably get him even more votes, maybe Ann Coulter would get elected. That would be crazy. I know this: the globalists want Trump out because he's actually trying to be president, and I understand the lesser of two evil arguments is a fallacy. But William, when you talk about Alexandria Cortez, and you talk about Pocahontas, Elizabeth Warren, you talk about Kamala Harris saying no borders, period, and all of this. I mean, I get your point about Trump compromising with them. I just couldn't imagine not voting and supporting Trump over somebody like Pocahontas.
All immediately. It takes a while, and the nation of America is sort of strong like that. We could be mortally wounded already. We could be beyond the point of no return. There's a good chance that enough illegal immigrants, combined with Muslim refugee resettlement programs and others, have now already taken us beyond the numeric point of no return, and that anyone promising the things that Donald Trump promised us could never be elected president again. Now, I don't know if we're past that invisible point yet or not, but we've got to be close to it, because everybody saw how close Trump came. Well, the bill that Trump endorsed last week would have eventually displaced 1 million Trump voters. Okay, 1 million illegal immigrants would have been on a path to eventual citizenship where they would vote Democrat, and we know they vote Democrat because of surveys, polling data, what the 1986 amnesty did to turn Republican state of California permanent socialist blue. If that bill passes, or the current bill being pushed by nepotism son-in-law Jared Kushner, who, if anybody would like to write to Jared Kushner and say, please don't continue supporting amnesty deals with Donald Trump, you can write him at, I think it's 666 Manhattan Avenue is where his real estate empire and offices are located. Kushner is on point now, offering 1.8 million green cards, which means a path to citizenship, permanent legal status. The DACA illegal aliens, DACA is an amnesty. So when Trump says it's not an amnesty, it's a temporary 3-year continuation of DACA, it's an amnesty. And he's not being very straightforward or honest with us. And there are a lot of people that have heard so many lies that even when I come along and representing the people who've been fighting in the trenches to stop amnesty for over a decade before Trump became a Johnny-come-lately to these issues, Trump had no credibility on these issues. He gained his credibility through the support of people like you and me and Ann Coulter and Jeff Sessions and Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who were so thankful to have someone champion our causes. But here's the list, the tracking list of where Trump is at on immigration issues based on our volunteer researchers at ALIPAC.us. Trump promised that the Caravan illegals could not come into the USA. We're going to be putting out an article in about 48 hours showing that most of the Caravan illegal aliens have been allowed into the United States, and that's why more caravans are forming. Trump promised a border wall. There's no wall, and now he's talking about partial fencing in some places instead of a wall. Trump promised to end DACA amnesty on his first day in office. He continued the DACA for over a year, breaking his promise before any liberal judge, which, once again, I heard you talking earlier, Alex, about how the president doesn't have to listen to one judge beneath the Supreme Court on these things. I completely agree. But now that a judge has given him cover on the DACA, he did not end DACA, and he seeks to make DACA permanent and take it from an unconstitutional Obama directive and memos to a formal law. And I can tell you, we did not elect Donald Trump to make DACA permanent. We elected Donald Trump because he promised us illegal immigrants, including DACA dreamers, had to leave the country. Everyone should remember this when he told us this. He said, we either have a country or we don't. He told us the illegals had to leave. He told us he was going to form a deportation force. He's doing none of these things. He's actually doing something 180 degrees different than that. He promised us recently, red meat, just before the midterm elections, where a lot of voters like me did not get excited about things, that he was going to end birthright citizenship through an executive order. Didn't do it. He told us recently he was going to declare a state of an emergency to get the wall built. Didn't do it. He told us he was sending the military to help deal with the invasion. They were down there flipping burgers and stringing up some wire and standing back. Trump promised to end catch and release of illegal aliens, but catch and release continues, and patriots on the ground in Arizona are doing live videos showing the DHS buses, our tax money, paying for the gas, paying for the drivers. Our tax money is busing illegal aliens into the country and turning them free. And there's a pattern here that we see Trump shout something out, or his administration will do something that will catch the ire of the opposition, as you and I often do. And Trump will say, I'll give you the asylum-seeking illegals must be returned to Mexico, and next week we're going to start sending them back at 20 per day. And then the media goes, oh, that horrible racist Donald Trump is going to start sending the asylum seekers back to Mexico. And then you find out, no, Mexico never agreed to this. Nobody's really going back to Mexico, but everybody heard the initial shouting. So there's so many people hearing this right now that are thinking,
well, he follows it up and says we're going to try to cut funding to Mexico because they're not doing it. But, you know, a lot of it is that Trump is surrounded by a bunch of people that are from the swamp who don't carry out what he says. I mean, they brag about it.
Yeah, he hired a lot of globalists and open borders people and stuck them at DHS and all around him, and ignored people like Sheriff Joe Arpaio and the people that got him elected. He didn't put his base in place. And, you know, we're over 2 years in now. So I'm asking people to support what we're doing for several reasons here, Alex. One, if you like the idea of running Ann Coulter to try to get Donald Trump to return to his campaign promises, then we'd like your support. If you want to help stop amnesty bills, which will neutralize millions of you listening out there in future U.S. elections, elections. If you realize that you cannot compete against 2 to 3 or 4 million, I think the amnesty bills that Donald Trump endorsed that we fought to stop would have given amnesty to 4 million illegal aliens. So that's 4 million Trump voters thrown under the bus permanently in future U.S. elections, which would give Democrats a permanent monopoly over U.S. elections, government, and laws. The amnesty legislation that ALIPAC is fighting to stop will eventually, might take 5 years, 10 or 15 at max, will give Democrats a permanent monopoly over U.S. elections, government, and laws. And there's no way that you can beat these identity politics, anti-white, racist, socialist agendas with some type of rational appeal that's going to change the outcome of elections anymore. They're taking us beyond that point of no return. And at this point, that's where Trump is headed, and we're trying to stop it. So if you oppose the amnesty, we need your support. And even if you want to see Donald Trump reelected in 2020, we're asking for your support, because you need to realize, whether I'm here telling you this or not, whether you want to think about this or not, there are millions of Americans like me that supported Donald Trump fervently and endorsed him and voted for him that won't be back already.
Well, here's the bottom line. I mean, here's the bottom line. We're getting from these socialist collapsed countries the very worst, dumbest people who want a free handout. They admit that on average. And so when they do vote, they do almost overwhelmingly vote Democrat, especially the Islamicists being brought in who are all under the control of their imams, who then get put in these factories. I mean, this is really, really scary, this giant permanent third world population being brought in that'll then be voting. So I get what you're saying overall. And the bigger question is, why is Trump doing this? I mean, I'm all for the wall, but it becomes a distraction from not allowing the amnesty. Because every time you do an amnesty, it just encourages the next group to come. And, you know, Ronald Reagan found that out. You're absolutely right. You know, if most of these folks didn't vote to take the guns and go along with the leftist ideology, then I wouldn't care if America turned brown. The problem is they're coming from countries that people believe in socialism. That's why they're hellholes. And it's a very, very sad thing. So we'll continue to track this, get you back up in the next few weeks. Welcome to come on the War Room, on the David Knight Show with others, Mr. Gheen, and break all this down. ALIPAC.us. I'm Alex Jones with Infowars.com. Thank you. We'll be right back after this break. I promise to finish with your phone calls. We've got Watson was doing the show today. He's doing a TV interview. He's hosting the 4th Hour Thursday. It's going to be Matt Bracken, 4th Hour. I'm going to take a few segments, just a segment or two to finish up with your phone calls.